Good evening, everyone. We're now in Daniel chapter 2, and we continue on from verse 24. Now, yesterday, when we completed, I hope that we understand that right up to verse 23, we find that God had chosen to reveal the secret, the dream of Nebuchadnezzar, as well as the meaning of that dream. And God has chosen to give it all to Daniel over the night in a night vision. And upon receiving the information, Daniel praised God, and we looked at the character of God that Daniel had presented to us. Right after that, we read in verse 24, thereupon. Thereupon really means after what happened in verse 23. After he has received that information about the secret of the dream and the meaning of the dream, Daniel went to Arioch. Arioch is also commonly believed to be Nebuzaradan, the executioner of Nebuchadnezzar. And understand this, Daniel wasn't there at the meeting with the sages and the Chaldeans. And then the law came out, the edict came out to kill all the sages. And while Arioch was looking for Daniel and his three friends, his three companions, uh, Daniel knows Arioch well. And Arioch knows Daniel well. And thereafter, Daniel went to see the king to seek for a little bit of time to consult with God. Verse 24 means that the consultation with God is over, and Daniel went to present himself to Arioch. But understand this, that it appears to us that when Daniel went to see King Nebuchadnezzar, Arioch was not present, and perhaps this would give him a little bit of deniability. Arioch is the one whom the king had appointed to kill or to slay all the sages of Babylon. Now he went and said this to him. That means Daniel is speaking to Arioch. He says, do not kill the wise men of Babylon. Don't carry out the edict. Take me into the king's presence, or take me before the king. I think that would be the idea here. This would be before the king. Now, in his presence could mean, at the side hall, but the idea here is really in front of his face. And then I will declare the interpretation to the king. Now, I want us to understand that this word here is not declare. I will make known to explain to the king. The idea here is I guess I'm a bit particular about this word, is that uh, it is useful for us to think of those higher in authority, like the king, to make declarations and edicts and laws. But for a servant of the king, then the word here is to make known, to explain. It is not to declare in the sense of telling the king something official, but really to inform the king what the interpretation or the explanation. Now, if that's the case, then this could be explain and explanation, and that would give us a better idea from the Aramaic. Now, after Arioch hear this, it tells us this then. Now, this is a peculiar word in Aramaic. Uh, it means that after Daniel had spoken to Arioch, and then Arioch hurriedly brought Daniel into the king's presence and spoke to him as follows. This word Hurriedly means in haste, as very urgent. Now, why is he doing it so urgently? Because there was an edict to kill the wise men. He was appointed. And if he is not going to carry out his appointment, then the king must be the one to say so, not Daniel. And so Daniel is merely telling Arioch that don't carry on with the assignment, just bring me to see the king. And that is what it means. And the king's presence is before the king. And then said this to the king. It says, I have found, and this is Arioch speaking, I have found a man among the exiles from Judah. Now, this word here, among the exiles of Judah, is literally, it really means the sons of the exiles, or the people of the exiles. So I found a man among the sons of the exiles from Judah. So all you need to know is there are a couple of words that is missing from the translation. It doesn't completely change the meaning, but it's just incomplete. Then it says here, who can make the interpretation known to the king? The better way of expressing this is who can make known. You see, the words are here. Make known. Same words, but for whatever reason they chose the word declare, I don't know. So who can make known the explanation of the dream to the king. Verse 26. The king responded to Daniel. This is what it says. This word said is not just merely talking, it is responded to Daniel, not to Arioch. Now, this is the interesting thing because he is seen as the man, Daniel. And we're told a little bit of the background, whose name was Belteshazzar. Uh, Belteshazzar, as we have seen in chapter 1, has a little bit to do with the god of the Babylonians. And so the king now, as he has given Daniel time to find out, he has come to see Daniel and ask Daniel, are you able to make known to me the dream which I had seen and its interpretation? Now, this word here is to make known, to is to actually give knowledge. This is another word here, is to give knowledge. And it says here, to the dream which I have seen. Now, this word seen here literally means had a visual experience. Typically, people would say, I had a vision. But really, this is a verb, which I had visualized. I think you can also say that. Visualized in his dream. And then what Nebuchadnezzar is more interested in is not the dream itself, but the pasha. It is revealing, the revealing of the dream. The intent is to understand, right? This is important, is to understand the dream, understand what it means. Again, I have mentioned that Nebuchadnezzar is a very intelligent man. And he, being the most important king of that era, is very smart. He can sense that this particular dream is very peculiar. He has seen multiple facets of it, little bits and pieces, he knows that it's all part and parcel of the same dream. And so when he says that it has escaped him, it means that he can't really recollect all the parts, but it is not the parts of the dream that really bothered him. It is what it means that bothered him, and hence his fixation on the idea of interpretation. The moment Arioch came and talked about the interpretation, the king was instantly interested. Verse 27, and it says here, Daniel answered before the king and said. Now, all these words answer is the response of Daniel to what the king had asked him. Do you know what the dream is about? And can you reveal to me the meaning? And that is particularly what Nebuchadnezzar is interested in. Now, Daniel, just observe what he says. As for the secret, secret literally means what is not known, what is hidden, what appears to be a mystery about which the king has inquired, asked for answers. Neither the sages, the wise men, and here the astrologers, the necromancers, and the diviners, the people who are able to deal with the illusion or the impressions of what they would normally call uh, demons. I guess you can use that word. That they are magicians who can make enchantments as well as uh, illusions of things that is difficult to explain. And none of them has the ability. This word able literally means uh, does not have the ability to reveal to the king, to declare or to explain to the king. This is the same word. I don't like the word declare. To explain to the king. And what I try to help us understand is when he says about the wise men, although Daniel and his friends weren't there, they were considered part of the wise men, men with deeper insights to situations. And Daniel was included. And so when the king got upset that he couldn't get any answers, he wanted all the wise men to be killed, including Daniel and his friends. Now, Daniel continues in verse 28. He tells us this, however, nevertheless, but, right, nevertheless, not all is lost. Because the sages, the Chaldeans, actually did tell the king the knowledge of such a dream does not belong to those who live among flesh and blood. It has to come from a different realm. And so even when they call themselves demonists, or illusionists, to show the king and the people that they have superpowers, supernatural powers. But the king had uncovered their, I guess, tricks or parlor tricks. Because in this particular case, none of them were able to tell the king what he dreamed. And including Daniel admitting that he is flesh and blood, and hence by himself he cannot know. But there is an Elah. Now, this word in the Aramaic is Elah in Shamayim or Shemayim, in heaven, in the skies. I suppose that we need to appreciate that when non-Jews are talking about Elohim or Allah. In particular, when in this case Daniel, a Jewish person from the exile from Judea, speaks to Nebuchadnezzar, he doesn't use God's name. Interestingly, uh, likely that Nebuchadnezzar may not know who the God of Israel is, but they can appreciate that there is a God in heaven. Maybe we don't know the name, but there is truly one up there. And this is generally true in most, if not all, the civilizations of the day. And Daniel is saying this God in heaven, Elah, Bishamayim, who can reveal. This idea of reveal is to expose secrets. And he has made known, given this knowledge to King Nebuchadnezzar, what will take place in the, now I want to point out to you this word, latter days, which we can say the end days or the end period, or possibly the latter days or the latter era. It is not to say that this is the end of time, but the end of the epoch. I think that would be a good way to talk about it. The end of epoch. What is the end of epoch? It means that this series of events that is revealed in the dream embodies a period of time all the way to what God would call the end of this era or this epoch. Doesn't mean that it is the end of time, but it is the end of this, whatever God wants to reveal. We continue here. It says, this was your dream and the visions in your mind while on your bed. This was what troubled him. Now we have two words here in verse 28, dream, and in this case, visions. This word vision here is not particularly what the Navi or the prophets would have as a vision, but this word is still used. Now, why? Now, this word is used in the same vein. These are similar words. Why? Because God of the heavens is speaking to the king through the dream. That is what Daniel is trying to tell him. You have a dream, it bothered you, you could see what was communicated, it troubled you in your mind. Now, this word in your mind actually doesn't really mean mind. This word means head. It was in your head while you were upon your bed, while you were sleeping. So it's not mind, but it is actually head. You are thinking about it. You're trying to remember. You're trying to unravel the mystery. This seems to be a secret. Nobody else knows about it. None of the wise men. And so it really troubled the king. In verse 29, it says here, as for you, O king, uh, and basically saying, you, O king, while on your bed, it says that your thoughts, now this word, your thoughts, is important. Thoughts being the things that you are thinking about. I think that would be a good way. Let me help us understand why this word is actually used. Thoughts. things thinking about, right? Now, the king is thinking about many things. So he has pieces of things he is thinking about, and he's trying to connect them together. Does it connect this way, or does it connect this way? And so it it troubled him because he can't put his thoughts together. Now he's a king, and in this dream, being a very strange dream, Daniel is explaining to him why you are feeling this way. But all these things that you are thinking about in verse 29, while you are lying on your bed, what essentially is happening is these are going to take place in the future. Now, this word in the future, it is the same word as this word here, latter days. Interestingly, the translators is choosing different words, and this word latter days is after this, right? After this. Yes, it is in the future, meaning it's not happened yet. And then Daniel also says, he who reveals or undisclosed secrets has made known to you what will take place. Which means this: the vision, the dream, and the vision that the king has received is from God. That is what uh, that is what Daniel's trying to uh, hint to Nebuchadnezzar. It bothered him because it is not about things that he is familiar with. These are things that will come afterwards. These are things that will come in the future, in the latter days. And so these are similar words, not the same, but similar as after this, in the after period of time. And this essentially is Daniel telling Nebuchadnezzar that he is now privileged to have a divine communication from God to him. And this is the God in heaven, Elah Bishmaim, very similar to El or Elohim in Shemaim. And it's a generic word, a generic term, but something that Nebuchadnezzar can appreciate. And he needs to understand this is not from any, what we would say, any Tom, Dick, or Harry, or any of the illusionists, the demons, or whatever information his wise men, the necromancers, the astrologers is trying to tell him. No, it's nothing like that. This is a divine, supernatural message from the God of the heavens. That is what Daniel is trying to express to Nebuchadnezzar. He is in a very privileged situation. It is now revealed to Daniel to tell him what it means. In verse 30, verse 30 is what Daniel is telling the king. Look, as for me, this secret has not been revealed to me. This means that he, Daniel, is one of those. And if you read what he said, it has not been revealed to me for any wisdom residing in me than in any other living person. And now, this word living person literally means someone who is alive, right? One who is alive. One alive. Now, when we talk about one alive, we should refer back to what the Chaldeans had said, flesh and blood. In this dimension, He is nobody any more special than anybody else. This secret has not been made known to me. It has not been exposed to me, but it has been exposed to the king. And so it does really paint a picture to show Nebuchadnezzar that he is special. Now, he is not the nicest guy of all. He is not the most righteous of all. He is not the one who honors God. But by virtue of his position and by virtue of who he is, God has decided to reveal to Nebuchadnezzar whatever is in that secret dream. And the purpose, Daniel said, for the purpose of making the interpretation known to the king is what God is given to Daniel, that you may understand what is in your mind, that you are trying to piece the pieces. You're trying to connect the dots. You have many little ideas and visions and dreams, and you're trying to weave it together as one complete picture. And again, in this case, you find very strangely this word mind is actually heart, no longer head. And so in one chapter, you find the translator use mind to translate head just now. And then he uses the same word mind to translate heart. And by heart, it would be the will. Also the mind, also the decision-making faculty. It is something that the king must decide what to do. Now, God is revealed to the king the message of the message which he wanted to tell the king. But the meaning, which is troubling the king, is given to Daniel. And so in verse 31, Daniel continues to say this: You, O king, and this is really telling the king what he dreamed. Verse 31 onwards is the beginning of telling the king, it was not revealed to me when you knew it. Now I do. Now I can let you know what it means. I'm going to tell you the dream, and I'm going to tell you the meaning of the dream. And so here it goes. You, O king, you were seeing this, and behold, there was a single great statue, one image. Now we call it an image here, not a statue, but an image. I think it would be a better word. Now, why? I prefer image because it comes from the word tselem, or tselem in this case. It is what casts a shadow. It is an image, like what God says, let us make man in our image after our likeness. So we are all made in the image of God. It's that same word. So we have to, I would like to be more consistent, and we use the word image so that we don't sometimes use image, sometimes use statue. And so here the translators like the word statue. The statue was large, was very big. Now, this word here is very large and extraordinary radiance, was standing in front of you, and its appearance was awesome. We need to slowly understand this. We may not be able to get through this segment, but at least we spent enough time to dissect some of these words. That image was large. It was huge, right? It was huge. In terms of size, right? In terms of size. And it was immense, and his radiance was extraordinary. Now, this word radiance, let me just point out to us. The word radiance here was brightness. Brightness. Now, the word brightness here literally means, you can say, it was reflecting, it was reflecting light. Now, it is an image, and so it was brilliant, and so sometimes you call it splendor, but it very much means the brightness that is radiating from that image. And the image was standing in front of you, meaning the king can actually see that image. And then it says here, his appearance. Now, this word appearance literally means uh, its form. I guess you can say its form. What you actually see, what can be seen, the form of the image was awesome. This is where we have problem with this word. This word really means frightening. I guess in our modern day English word, awesome may mean spectacular. But in the Aramaic here, and similarly in the Hebrew, this word relates to fear. And it is very frightening, not awesome in our modern day word. Now, this is very important for us to appreciate that the king looked at it. He was so shocked. He was very scared. He was terrified because he was looking directly at it. Obviously, the king can see. And since the king is looking directly at it, the king can remember. He is a personal witness. It's just that at the very moment when the Chaldeans ask him, he says, "It's escaped me. I don't want to talk about it. But you tell me." And Daniel told the king. And basically, Daniel was first to admit it's not him, it is the God in heaven. And then only we talk about the meaning. Daniel is very humble. Daniel is very open with the king. Daniel is very direct with the king. Daniel is fearless with the king because there was an edict to kill all the sages. But Daniel knew God. Daniel already had knowledge. And so one of the things that we do know is information is power. And Daniel had that information now after the night vision. And he was not afraid. And so he was trying to help Arioch not to be afraid, to don't listen to the edict at this point in time. And understand this, Arioch has all the reason to be afraid because anyone who doesn't carry out the instructions of the king will die. But here, Daniel was very confident. Confident because he had communed with God in a supernatural way. The night vision gave him all he needed to know to be able to come before the king. Only him is able to stand before the king amidst all the other sages who are getting ready to die. Verse 32. Now, Daniel begins to explain the head of that statue or the image, we're talking about the head, was made of fine gold. Its chest. Now, this word, its chest, literally means its breast. Its breast and its arms of silver. And then it says its belly and its thighs was made of bronze. Now, this word bronze in the biblical text rightly should refer to copper, but similar color, I guess. The next is its legs of iron. And then its feet. It's partly of iron and partly of clay. All of these are good translations. So if you were to take a look at how might it might look like, so we have the image this way, and so this would be as good as it gets right now. So let us label the parts. The head, fine gold. Then we have the chest. Up to here would be the chest and arms, and this would be silver. And then we have the belly and its thighs, which will be up to here. This would be copper. Then its legs up to here is iron. And then we have its feet, which would be up to here. And this is part iron and part clay. That is as far as we can see. Now, the word clay would be, I guess you can say, these would be what is in from the ground, right? From the ground. And it corresponds to that idea as clay or the made from the dirt of the ground. So now we have this particular imagery. Now, what was the details of this image? It's not important. And what is important is the description by Daniel. So let us be mindful. There may be a lot of details in what Nebuchadnezzar could actually see. But what is important is the image, the parts of the body of the image, the metal of the image, or the material of the image is important. The next part that is important is found in verse 34. And in verse 34, it says, you continue watching. Now, verse 34 is as you watched. You were watching and you were looking at it. So let me just draw Nebuchadnezzar here. And this is Nebuchadnezzar. He is looking at the image. Now, notice the comparison between Nebuchadnezzar and the image is big. And hence, we could actually see that it is frightening because when he is present, he could see this to be an incredibly frightening image. Now we continue. He says, you continue watching. You were looking, and you're trying to figure this image out. And then a stone, it says here, a stone was broken off without hands. Now, this word, a stone that was broken without hands, literally a stone that is not cut. This is important. It's not cut by hand. I wouldn't use this word broken. This word is better as cut. Now, what does that mean? Now, if you have, this would be what we call a natural rock. A rock that you find in nature. And if we talk about a natural rock, it would mean that this rock is, I guess you can say, cast out or formed by the natural elements of what God had put in place. So a natural stone, not cut with hands, not using any instruments, would have come out. And so we could see it this way. It is a rock. And if this was a rock, and understand rocks are aplenty in the land of Babylon, in the land of Judea, all the hills are made of rock. They're rocky hills. And when the Bible says you are the rock, it literally means the entire hill is made of one big rock. And so we talk about this rock that is not cut with hands, it's a natural rock. And I would suggest that this would be a very big rock or a hill of sorts. And the view was this: it struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and crushed them. Now, these words are important. This word struck literally means it actually hit. I think you can say that it hit the statue. And so the place that it hit the statue, I guess you can say it hit the statue this way: on its feet. And remember, the feet is actually made with iron and clay mixed. That feet of iron and clay. And then the last word here is it crushed them. Now, the word crush here means shattered or shattered into pieces. This part here. So we can actually consider this is the weakest part, because this part is the one that holds the entire image up. And it crushed them literally means it shattered the entire feet into little pieces. It didn't hit the entire image. It only hit the feet, the feet that was made with iron and clay. Now, I would suggest that we pause here and we carry on tomorrow and pick it up from there. And so with this, we come to the end of our session today.